Welcome to Hot to Trot. This is not your normal horse racing podcast. My name's Ashley Wood, and I'll be your host as we take an inside look at the world of horse breeding and racing. So saddle up because Hot to Trot is ready to break from the gate now. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hot to Trot. We have a very special guest today and someone who is very near and dear to my heart. Special guest Scott Lishia in a different role here in PA, and we're going to talk a lot about that. But first, thank you so much, Scott, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ashley. It's a pleasure.
Well, you've done a couple of different roles here in PA, and you're now at Penn National, which is super exciting because you're right next to me. And I love having you close by again. But first, I want to talk about and give our listeners a little bit of background on you and how you really developed your career through the industry. How did you get started in racing? I know you have family ties and deep roots in the industry.
Sure. Yeah. Well, my uncle actually started working out in Chicago for the people who were called the Frenchmen I'm going to show some age, after World War II, when he got out of the service. And they ran kitchens on the backside throughout the country, a lot on the East Coast. Migrated back this way because we're originally from Somerset County. That's where I was born and raised, southern Somerset County. And ended up in Maryland working for Harry and Stevens, who was the food concessionaire at basically every sporting venue in the country for a very long time, or almost. And when I wound up taking over the kitchen in the jocks room down at the Maryland tracks, my father then took it over in the 70s whenever my uncle was getting ready to kind of retire. And that's how I got exposed to racing. Summer jobs, going to the Preakness and working Timonium fairs, just kind of, hanging out and really not working that hard when I was a kid, more goofing around. But I just fell in love with the atmosphere and the people. I thought it was fun, all the characters, and
There are some.
there were, a few. And then I went, went to college, went to University of Pittsburgh out in Johnstown, UPJ, and then still wanted to work, at the racetrack. So went back to work with my family. My oldest brother was actually doing the same kind of thing at Monmouth Park in the summer, where I'd spent a few summers with him working, and ended up there and got a job as a claims clerk in like the early 90s at the Meadowlands. And that's where it started. Sitting on the loading dock at the Meadowlands because that's where the claims booth was. And but from there, kind of made my way, worked Monmouth Park and Meadowlands, ended up being able to go to Florida and work in the winters at Hialeah, then Calder a little bit in Gulfstream, and spent a little time in Massachusetts at Suffolk Downs, very short stint, where I kind of switched over to more of the management operation side. I was in mutuals there. And then ended up in Maryland, back in Maryland in 2001. Came back and started working there, worked for several years, worked with you there. Took a hiatus for a while, went and worked in the cleaning industry in DC. Left that, came back to the racing, worked for the commission for a little bit as an investigator, and then in 2021, ended up at the Meadows. First stint at harness racing, was there for a little over 4 years. And now I'm here, Penn National, Central PA. So, I made my way around like a lot of people have, but that's pretty much the synopsis. Yeah.
I love like our industry, the fact that you and I have worked together like in a different state, at a different track, at a different time, doing different jobs. And like
Yeah.
you make your way back in like it's like it's such a big industry, but yet it's such a small industry. And you get to come back and like your paths cross, like really does so many times. And it's just
Yeah.
cool to see how people develop their careers and really stick. Like I've left before, and I went back to working in golf and going and selling weddings again. And I was like, I want to go back. I want to go back to racing. Like this is what I'm passionate about. So I get it just drags you back in.
It's funny. My wife and I got married several years ago. We were on our honeymoon in all places at Tahiti, and we're talking to some people at the pool, other couples who were on their honeymoon, and the one person was actually a relative of a jockey's agent, and he actually knew a person that I worked for down in Florida. So, it is true. It's a small world, but I always say we're like glorified carnival people, we move around. We know
Yep.
somebody when we go. We just, most of the time, we don't have the Ferris wheel. That's about the only difference. But, and sometimes we do. So that's
I'm
good
gonna
too.
say sometimes we do. We do come with rides.
Yeah.
It is a fun ride working in the industry and being in it and actually racing. So, um, I want to touch back on the enforcement part of that. That had to give you a totally different perspective of racing coming from, either like the fan side and just observing the races to actually being a part of the regulatory and safety. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And did that give like a different perspective for you about how these races are run?
Yeah, sure. I worked as an investigator for the Maryland Racing Commission for a few years under a gentleman named Joe Pone. Um, and Joe was an ex-Baltimore County police officer and rolled over, so he had a lot of experience in that investigative kind of work and things, which was all new to me. And it definitely does give you a different perspective. You kind of I can't really explain what that is, the actual, but you're looking at things through a different set of glasses, and that's great because perspective is key. I think too often in any industry, any business, we get focused in on our world and we don't consider the big picture. I've always tried to be a big picture kind of guy, but it gets clouded sometimes. So yeah, it's a difficult scenario. It's trying to meld that together and definitely working like I'll give an example like for the Preakness. We spent a lot of time at the stakes barns with the horses. Going around with the veterinarians, those kind of things. What goes on, but you maybe never really do it or see it or experience it. A lot of bagging things and writing things down and that little pieces that all fit into the pie, and especially in the world we live in now, the regulatory part of racing has become even more expanded, so to
Hmm.
speak, with ISA. And it's a very important part. Our athletes can't speak for themselves for the most part, they're horses. So
Yeah.
and I think overall, most of the people do a really, really good job taking care of their animals, making sure that they're cared for, they race at their maximum, optimum. But you still have to have that. You still have to have that in place. So yeah, it was definitely interesting, definitely different for sure.
I think that's like something that I want to move forward in my career path is the regulatory side. I've thrown around going to steward school. Not that I would think I could be a steward or really just to get the knowledge, because I don't think I watch the races from a regulatory, set of eyes, and that would be something I think would be important with like the communications is more like understanding of that end of our industry. So definitely something I think about a lot and admire about you that you've had all this experience and all these different facets of our industry.
Well, yeah, it's a thank you, but yeah, I think the more I hate to say it, but some of it's kind of just with age. The more you live, the more you experience things. I mean, well, what we did when we were 20 is not as much as we did when we were 30 or wherever that is. But yeah, it all melts together because it's all infused, and I think you see it more and more every year how it's all intertwined, and the coverage that is now given to racing just in general. There's a lot of different aspects, and we're starting to see all of them that existed for years, but people didn't know about it. So it's
Yeah,
good.
and I think his has really brought like a real big light to the regulatory part of racing that wasn't there before. And I don't think people quite understood. that, we do kind of have our own refs and judges of racing. You just don't see them on the field. They're they're up high, hidden with
Yes.
binoculars. So I think it's good that, we're getting this light on the regulatory part of racing, since, it's an important aspect, especially with drawing new fans to our
Oh, absolutely.
sport.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of oversight, and you're betting on it, and we're making sure that, the betting public is aware of everything that is going on, and we are being transparent and making sure the safety and the integrity of racing is at the forefront of our sport. So love that, but we're quickly approaching what is our mecca of racing, which is the Triple Crown season. And you and I had like probably the best years at the Maryland Jockey Club. We had a lot of fun there. A lot of jokes, a lot of pranksters. John Lanzini, let's shout him out. Both
Yeah.
you and I are very good friends with John. He's a prankster and a jokester, and he always made everything more fun and light because it can be a stressful time.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, those days working were definitely a lot of fun. I love Maryland. I love Maryland racing. That's where I first got exposed to it. But there were a lot of. I remember somebody saying one time about days off and things like that, and leading up to the Preakness, I think you'd work 30 days straight. And but she didn't mind it, because it
Mm-mm.
was there were a lot of things that went on. We used to do the Manic Mondays that one morning, and
Monday
it was
before Preakness.
yeah, it was the hokiest thing in the world, but it was amazing how many people came out at 6 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. When you're kind of that weak, kind of it's go time for sure, and just to do those kind of things, a lot of fun. Um, Great experiences. Get to meet a lot of different people. Again, perspectives. You get to see different ways people do things. I remember the one owner came in with a big luxury Winnebago, I guess you would call it, or whatever, and things that you would never experience. I mean, it definitely a wonderful time, and the people there made it that way.
What was exactly like your role? I know what your role was because I worked hand in hand with you and we'd fight for the copier.
Yes, absolutely. Well,
You would win.
well, when I worked with my father, I played a lot of ping pong when I was younger in the jocks room.
Yeah.
And no, but I had done 14 Preaknesses just working with my dad in the counter when I was young, and then as I grew up, and got to college. But when I got back, I worked a lot in admissions, parking, traffic control, overall operations. You know, you got to deal. That was a cool thing. I thought you got to deal with the police. You got to deal with.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, Homeland Security was created at that point, so we learned a lot about threatening packages and what do you do around a bag if you find it sitting, those kind of things. But working with the city a lot, on traffic patterns, trying to figure out the best way to get people in and get people out.
Yeah.
Um, and that was
Signage, a lot of signage.
a lot of signage, and if you recall, I mean, the Preakness had been going on for over 100 years when we were working there, and every year you were changing, you were tweaking, you were adjusting,
Hmm.
and you have to be able to embrace that, I think, because nothing's ever perfect.
No.
I made a statement one time. I said it like the Preakness is like Thanksgiving dinner. We work real hard, try to pull everything together. And maybe the turkey's a little dry and the potatoes are lumpy, but overall, if everybody has a good time, then it's a win. And that's what you were trying to do. You were throwing a party for 80 to 100,000 people when we were there, and I think overall, it ran really well, but it ran well because of the people that were there. Not only did they know what they were doing, they really cared about what they were doing.
Hmm.
They were passionate about it, they loved it, and they lived the event.
We did. I mean, I loved my time there. I loved everyone I worked with. I think one of my favorite things was after we all got done and we got a little time to recuperate, we did the good, the bad, and the ugly meeting. And we all sat down in a big U shaped. And I just remember, Tom would pray. It was good to feel the praise from your president. And that was Tom Chukas at the time. We were there, and it was just a nice feeling to feel appreciated. But you could say, what we thought, and everyone took everything very well. And it was just so we could all get better, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there was a time I won't forget that we went out to I was in ticket sales and the seating part of things, and we got these portable bleachers and they didn't put the seats on the back row.
Uh-huh.
And this guy, and I mean, he had every right to be upset. He paid for those seats. They're not up. I don't have tools to put them up. I'm trying to deal with it. And we were sold out that year. It was our first year. Like we were sold out of Preakness tickets, and like we didn't have a spare anything. We figured it out. Kathy, I got to give it to her. She threw a table up in the dining room and we made them happy. But yeah, that was a rough go of it. Like we need to make sure the vendors actually put the seats on the portable seating bleachers.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are things sometimes but you don't think about until it happens. I mean,
Hmm.
like, oh man, not, we should have, should have put stickers on the benches or whatever, it just, yeah.
We should
However
take a
that works.
walkthrough. We need to take a walkthrough. So that
Yeah.
was like a new thing. Like everyone take a section, like a set of like a seating area, and make sure all the chairs and all the seats are there, because if we sold them, they better be there, because that was not fun.
No, yeah, definitely not. And on a day like that or an event like that, you're pulled in 30 directions at once, and you want to try and help everybody as much as you can, but it's that's the stressful part. I think that's really the stressful.
Yeah,
My
and
favorite
you're
part was the Preakness itinerary that we had. It was, and I'll just say 100 pages for
oh,
Preakness Day. And the day before Black Eyed Susan was the dress rehearsal. It was about 4.5 pages,
yeah,
and I,
literally starts at like 2 a.m. in the morning when Homeland Security gets there and does a sweep of the building.
yeah, yeah,
And like every minute there is something. And you would be flabbergasted. I think the public would be flabbergasted that we had that all written out. And I
yeah,
think it was Donnell that would like, no, it was Donnell that actually would go through and update it. And then
yeah.
we would have to print them, and everybody would be like ripping pages in the
Oh,
background.
well, you mentioned John Lanzini. We worked together. And the first year I kind of turned over a lot of things to him. I walked in like Friday at like 1 in the afternoon, and he was like sitting at the desk and I don't know if I can do, and I go, no, no, no. Trust me, tomorrow will be a cakewalk. This is a horrible day, and it is, but you learn from it. And after you do it once, then you get the routine down and you expect preparing for the unexpected is kind of what is important.
Yeah,
If you had everything in line, then when the unexpected things come up, it'll be easy. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I love that time. Like, do you have like a favorite memory from Preakness?
I have two, and these are well before when I was working with my dad. There was the year that Sunday Silence and Easy Goer raced, and the balcony outside of the jocks room is where I would watch the race, and I actually got to sit or actually stand right beside Charlie Whittingham and watch him, watch the race. So that was pretty cool because he was a legend then, so
Hmm.
that was neat. And then I used to try and take pictures, and I actually have a picture on my wall. I can go grab it if I won't. It's out of focus. I was young, but I got a really nice picture of Ali Sheba one time, and Chris McCarron rode Ali Sheba, and I got him to sign it for me. Then the next year when I saw him, and he gave me a nice little personal note on it, which is cool because I took the picture, and and he's a legend in our sport, and actually a very nice person, and someone I consider a friend. So, um, it's nice to have those kind of things. Those were my favorite kind of memories for me because they're just etched in my mind as really neat. And then I have probably some memories that we can't talk about on the podcast. So,
I have a lot of those memories.
yeah.
Like, I think mine is probably definitely when American Pharoah won. I was up, I used to handle the horseman's box,
Uh-huh.
and like that happening, and just like knowing, like you just knew in your gut that horse was like something really special, and
Yeah.
taking down the connections and the family and everyone crying, and like it had just poured down the rain. We were all soaking wet. If you had I had feathers on my fascinator. I just remember
Oh,
them
there
like
you go.
being in front of my eyes, and like trying to help like the ladies in their heels with the connections get down those very sketchy jocks steps down, because you're on live TV. Like we have a time limit, and I just had to get them to a certain point, and then you could hand them over to
Yeah.
like the next person. And we stepped onto that track, and when you did, your foot went like 6 feet into the dirt. Your whole foot was like, it was like quicksand. I was like, I can't believe this horse just ran that fast in this track, in this storm, and won. This is amazing.
I can't tell you how many meetings I sat in over the years to try and figure out a better way to get people from the owner's box to the winner's circle across the track. And there just was never a really a good way. That was,
No,
you
it had to
know,
happen so quickly.
yep. Yeah. That was probably the worst part of the whole day is trying to figure that out. So, but other than that,
I just had to get them down the stairs, which I always thought was like, okay, it's easy, not many, like, because you don't want anyone to have an interview. Like we're on live TV, like we're
oh
trying
yeah.
to like, boom, boom, no one talk, no one talk, like get them to the next point. But then I quickly realized like those stairs are very steep, and ladies are wearing heels with the connections, and everyone's really excited, and they're grabbing each other, and I'm like waiting for someone to like, safety first, hold on to the railing,
Yeah.
don't
And
let
then you
anyone
added a
fall.
little bit of rain in too. So that made it extra slick, I'm sure. Right.
Yeah, so I'm like, but you're also like so emotional and happy and
Oh,
excited. And it was just, that was probably, I mean, that changed history. Like we had been waiting for a possible, and we didn't know it was our Triple Crown winner, but just to be a part of that day was,
oh yeah. Had to be.
yeah. And then like the little things, like all of us watching like the Kentucky Derby and the conference room, because we always had live racing that day,
Uh-huh.
and we would be there, and we just all pile into the conference room, and we'd have snacks, and people would bring stuff from home, and just like that camaraderie of the team, like knowing like we're next, and like who's coming, and getting excited about figuring out what horses are gonna, possibly come, and who's gonna win, and the connections. I loved it. That was another great.
Yeah.
Well, I
No. A
have a lot
lot
of
of
good
lot of
memories.
fun. A lot of fun for sure.
Yeah. So I know you took a little hiatus from racing. I've done that too. You always come back. She has a pull on us. But talk to me a little bit about some of the things you did at the Meadows, because you transitioned over to harness, which I didn't start working in harness race. I did a little bit at Rosecroft in the Maryland Jockey Club. That was my first introduction to harness racing, but didn't really like fully get into it till I came here into PA. And you worked at the Meadows for a while.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's different, but it's the same. I said to somebody one time, they said, "Boy, you're really going to have to learn a lot." I said, "Well, the horses go counterclockwise. They all start about the same spot, and whoever finishes first wins." And they go, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Well, it's basically the same, but there are a lot of nuances, a lot of differences. Very much like harness racing. I think the one thing that kind of was very attractive is especially at the Meadows. I can't speak to every track around the country, but there's still that we bred the horse, we own the horse, we train the horse, maybe we even drive the horse. It's very
Hmm.
family oriented still. It's very much that, it's almost like the small farmer down the road has three or four horses that he races, and I like that because, the people are very entwined. It's very agrarian, I guess would be the fancy term. And coming there was nice. As I said, we were living in Maryland at the time, That's where my kids were raised. So when we moved there, for me, it was kind of like coming home, just outside of Pittsburgh. We, grew up a Steelers fan, so that was neat to see more black and gold than purple and black in Maryland. But no, but so it was nice in that aspect. And the people were very nice. The property was a great place to work, and I think we did some good things, maybe some not so good things, but we tried things, and overall, I think everybody was pretty receptive to what we did. I think the best thing that we did, and you were a part of it, although the heat got to you the one year, but
Last year.
yeah, we did. Our big event there is the Adios, which is named after a horse that was owned by the founder of the racetrack, Delvin Miller, who's kind of iconic at harness racing. But our big day is that day, the stake named after him. So I think the way we expanded our TV show and our production, even though it was there in house, and through our network, with the additions of you and Meadow, and adding some people to the announcers booth and handicappers, with Mike and Edison. I think we made something that, we maybe took it to I'm not going to say another level, but we enhanced it. And
Hmm.
we made it something that people wanted to listen to, because we were getting all this handicapping perspective, whether it was you or Jeff, our announcer, and people were, people always like that hot tip, that information, and
Just
and
also a different perspective. Like my perspectives are a lot different than say Jeff's, who's watching them every day, and I'm kind of looking at them from like an outsider's eye, looking at replays, and I might have saw something different than what he saw.
Exactly, and it goes back to that, the perspective. Everybody has their own view, the things they look at, the things. It was funny, and I think I really learned this when I worked in the cleaning industry. I walked around through buildings, and like the gentleman who was kind of teaching me said, look, everybody looks at different things. Some people look at baseboards. If baseboards are clean, that's good. Some people go into the bathroom, and if the bathroom looks clean, the whole building's clean. Some people it's the parking garage. Some people it might be the glass or this. Everybody, and I even noticed that, like, we moved, so when we were looking at houses, there's certain things that I just migrate to, and I look at them, and if I like those things, I like the house. The roof could be falling off, but if it's got a really cool backsplash, then I'm in, or whatever that might be. So yeah, it does. Those different perspectives are so important, and working in harness racing, yeah, it is slightly different. There are some nuances, things, but again, it just builds that overall kind of framework, and trying to create. We're not just creating a product to bet on. I say this a lot. We're running an industry, so we're people's livelihoods rely on it. So there's a great crew out there, that small staff, but their staff is great. They work hard. They care very much. I was fortunate to fall into that. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
The harness racing community is something that's just different. Like coming from majority thoroughbred, and then they're so welcoming. The fans are so fun and also very passionate,
Yeah,
and very opinionated, but very also like welcoming. It's like sometimes in thoroughbred, people aren't as welcoming, I've noticed, when you're coming into the industry. Like they're most of the time they are, but they gotta warm up to you. They gotta ask you a bunch of questions. They want to hear your resume a little
yeah,
bit of like, who'd you come from? Where's your dad? Like, why are you part of this industry? I don't know how many people ask me who my dad was. And I'm like,
right.
wait, I don't come from any racing. But the harness guys, as soon as they found out like I didn't know much, they were like, come here and let me show you something. We're gonna
Hmm.
make you put hobbles on the horse today. Ashley, like you know what a croup is? That was, I think, Gary Johnston's favorite thing to show me and teach me was about the croup.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they are. They're very welcoming. Again, it's like a family, and they're not. they're inviting you into their house
Hmm.
because it's so much part of their lives. And not to say it isn't on the thoroughbred side anymore, but you know, thoroughbred racing's kind of morphed, I guess, quicker into those bigger stables, those you know, kind of business oriented. I'm all over the place,
Hmm.
I've got horses here, 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 and here, and that kind of stuff. So it's still a business. It very much is, but there's still that kind of that hometown feel that you get. I guess it's the difference between, let's say, a Walmart and a small family owned store. They're both great. You can find what you want, but they're definitely very different too.
Hmm.
So, you know,
Yeah, definitely. But they're both great. And
yeah,
like you said, it's just a little different, but still getting the best quality, I
oh,
think.
absolutely.
And especially at the Meadows and the community there. They're amazing. And
Yeah.
Adios is one of my favorite events in Pennsylvania and in harness racing. I love those days and what the track has made them, like a 2-day event. And you have the orchids and the flowers, like thoroughbred, and like everyone wears their purple, and I just love that. So,
Yeah. It's amazing how the local community embraces that event. I mean, you've seen it. There's people out there if we start racing at noon, there are people there at 7 in the morning putting tablecloths on picnic tables,
yep.
and I mean, they every year they embrace it, and and we get people from out of town, but it's not like people are coming from all over the country flying in just for that race. It's a lot of the local community, and they come out and they support it to the hill. It's amazing.
They decorate their tables like they're at the steeplechases.
Absolutely.
It's amazing, the passion. So let's talk about a little bit about your new role now at Penn National, coming back to Thoroughbred. And once
Mhm.
again, super excited to have you back in my backyard. First, I want to know is how your wife Rosemary took it moving again and uprooting.
Yeah. Um,
Love you,
yeah,
Rosemary.
she did very well. This was actually it worked on a lot of levels for us. That's one of the reasons we entertained the option. Rosemary's from New Jersey, so it knocked about $3 off the trip from Pittsburgh on the turnpike. So that's probably like $1 million in savings and tolls. But no
True.
offense, anybody from the Turnpike Commission is listening. But yeah, so moving out here, that worked well. She works for the Horsemen's Organization in Maryland, the MTHA. She's their finance person. So her offices are in Owings Mills, Maryland. So she works from home most of the time. But now we located just outside of York. So it's only about an hour drive for her to get to our offices, which was much better than the 4 hours from Pittsburgh. So she goes in like 2 days a week. Um, and it just kind of worked well. We found a place to live. Yay for us. We moved over the holidays. Don't recommend doing that. Do not buy and sell a house before and after Christmas. Do not do that. But we're just north of York. So right off of Route 83. Take 35-minute commute for me, an hour for her the day she goes in. So it works really well.
I'm in
And
York.
yeah,
We're neighbors.
there you go. It's we like it a lot so far. We're still kind of settling in. We've only got about 83 boxes in the basement yet to unpack, and after that we'll be golden. It'll be good. But yeah, it's been good, and it was an easy transition. Let's put it
Mhm.
that way. When we moved from Maryland to Pittsburgh, my daughter was going into her freshman year of high school, and that was a little traumatic. We had some uh, minutes of hyperventilating. Because that's a big. She
Yep.
had her whole year planned out and everything. But we adjusted, we survived, and yeah, we're doing good.
Good. Well, I'm glad the family, handled the transition well. And
Yeah,
hey, now we can go out to dinner. I got some great restaurants we can try out.
there you go. We're
Me and
always
Rosemary can start hanging
around.
out again.
Absolutely. We're always looking for a place to go out to eat. That's for sure. I love to eat.
Oh, I got a list. The
Yeah,
do's and don'ts of York County.
there you go.
So tell me a little bit about, what you're excited about coming to Penn and, there that racetrack was my very first racetrack I've ever been to as a child with my dad, and it's just so near and dear to my heart. Anything stand out to you about, stepping into this role and things that you would like to see or things you do not want to see go with there?
Well, first off, yeah. I mean, it's again, and I sound like a broken record, but the crew here, the people that I'm working with, they're phenomenal. Um, Again, I don't. Maybe it is this industry because it's such a small close knit group, as we kind of said, but they're all very passionate about it. They care about their job. They care about what they do. My racing office, my assistant or my racing secretary here, Jenny Tippa, is fabulous. If anybody knows her, they would totally agree. The crew here is excellent in the office. Our track man, Jake Leitzel, I put him up against anybody in the country, and I've worked with some really good track superintendents over the years. Jake and his crew do a phenomenal job as well. I think anybody will tell you in Pennsylvania or the Mid Atlantic, the racetrack here in the wintertime is probably the best winter racing surface that we have. You know, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of care, it's a lot of effort, and they all put into it. For me coming here, I'm very excited to come back to Thoroughbreds. Not a knock on anybody, but like you said, this was your first track.
Hmm.
This was this was where I cut my teeth. Thoroughbred racing for several years. Um, the track, I've known it well. I hate to say it, but I was here when there was no casino. So
Yep,
so
me too.
I just but when you see the transition from where it was to where it is now with the casino, with the way the property is and everything, and I was very excited because I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think there's a lot of opportunity to utilize the space we have to maybe do things, to try and incorporate things. That'll be baby steps. Rome wasn't built in a day, and we'll do that. I think also, though, we're kind of at a crossroads right now. We as an industry need to really look hard at what we're doing, um, try to create a product that one is viable to sell, people want to bet on, but can also make it sustainable for people to make a living and be successful. Um, you know, where we go from here, I don't know, but as I said before, I think we need to all take a big picture perspective on this, because right now, we're in a situation, and I'm just going to say we're plopped in the middle of the state, so to speak. Right now we have one, two, three tracks that race currently within probably a 2.5 to 3 hour shift. You'll have another one, two, three more coming on in a few months when the summer season comes with, you know, uh, Finger Lakes. Finger Lakes might be 4 hours, but you'll have New Jersey racing, you'll have Delaware coming on board. And, when I worked in the racing office in New Jersey, I had just as many phone numbers for guys from Pennsylvania and New York as I did for Jersey guys. And that wasn't last year. That's not a new thing.
Hmm.
People ship people and we compete for the same horses. It's awful lot of racing in a very, very small area. Colonial Downs is racing, a 3 day here kind of little meet. They'll be up and running in the summertime, giving away a ton of money. I know Maryland does kind of shut down for that period, but it's a lot. And I think we need to really refocus and work together somehow on a plan that makes it viable for them. And that's going to be the challenge.
Yeah, because I understand, like, this is controversial, which I might get the controversial. I think we do need to look hard and perhaps think about going back to seasonal racing where we are gypsies again in the industry. Like even when I started, we were still gypsies. We would go down to Maryland would shut down. Everyone would go to Virginia,
Yep.
and you had to work. You had to work at different racetracks. It was just life. And that's how we were able to sustain. Of course, everyone, it is more stable to have year-round racing and it is easier. But do we have enough horses to sustain that in this area with as many tracks? So I do think it's something the industry needs to look hard at and we need to think about because when those things shut down, then you got like a new, fresh, horses at a different track. You had new betters. It was, locally.
Mhm.
And it's just something I think us as an industry should consider, especially with these smaller racetracks in the area. It's hard to compete when, Belmont opens up and Saratoga's running and all the big horses go up there. But you guys have night racing, so I feel like you have an edge. You have a good
Yeah.
edge.
I mean, we fall into that window. We have night racing except for on the turf course, but that's no lights on the turf course. But
No.
no, we do. And I think the night racing, we race kind of that bridge time. We start around 5:45. We're not like the traditional, and there is no tradition anymore, but like the 7:30 post time. So yeah, we kind of fill that void between the day tracks shutting down, the night tracks really kicking in. We get jump started. Hopefully, you get entrenched with your customer base, and they're watching you, and maybe they're winning some
Hmm.
money. So now they want to keep playing you because we're the hot track at the moment. But it's kind of like the hot slot machine. We want to keep playing it because
Yeah.
but whatever that case might be, yeah, we do have that little niche that we like.
Yeah, and that helps with the betters, but it doesn't help with the races, like the horses. We still need the horses to
We
fill the
still need the
races.
horses, and it's everybody.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
we
is.
talk
It's
about it.
across the country.
Yeah, it's a struggle. It truly is. I mean, we unfortunately, couldn't fill a card for next Friday. We didn't have the entries. Well, it just so happened that Maryland couldn't fill their card for that Saturday. So they scrapped that card and they're trying to make a Sunday card. It's difficult. New York struggles to fill
Everyone
it
does.
right now. Everybody is. And it's another sign that, hey, maybe there's, you know, too much going on at one time for the
Hmm.
pool of what you have. Um, there's a lot of horses in Florida right now, still in Florida that come up north. Does that help when they come back? Yeah, it does. But those horses have been racing for 2, 3, maybe 5 months, depending on when they went down. So they might need a freshen upper, a little
Hmm.
time off. They might stop in the Carolinas for 4 or 6 weeks, some of them. Some of them may
Yeah.
not. And that's the nuance of it. There's no schedule for any of this. It's everybody's on their own plan. Everybody's dealing with what they can deal with. And, I think conversations are important. And I think action is important too.
Hmm.
We can talk all we want.
Yeah.
And I know we have talked at length in this industry. I can go back to the 90s and people would talk about we need to develop a circuit. Yeah. Um, we need to have uniform medication rules. We need to have this. We need to, all those kind of
Every,
things.
all
Um,
those conversations.
and some action has taken place, but I think now I think we're moving towards where we really need to work together. And I don't want to paint a doom and gloom scenario. That's not.
No.
But I think we have to transition. You look at every sport, every industry, and they've transitioned. When I was a kid, would I ever thought Amazon was where I buy 90% of my stuff? I mean, but the whole industry of retail sales has transitioned. I mean,
Yeah.
I bought something last night. I was sitting on my deck last night and I bought something from Amazon. It's coming Wednesday, by the way, in case you want. So,
Or your stuff's going to be delivered by a drone the next day. Like
exactly.
this, like who thought, like everything has developed so quickly with technology and, like you said, industries and sports and just how we do things. Who would have thought we would be betting on our phones? Like, and
Yeah.
sports betting, how that has just developed, like huge, developed huge. And it makes me kind of feel old because we didn't have these things. Like, there was a bookie at Pimlico and I knew him and I thought he was like the cool. I was like, you're actually a bookie. And he had like a leather binder. Like,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna go to the bookie and do some March Madness bets. Like I remember that, like telling Ty, like I felt like so scandalous going to the bookie at Pimlico.
Yeah, but that was part of it, and it's more now. I mean, well, I work with the sports wagering here. It's one of the things that I oversee, and I work with them, and it's amazing. I mean, guys will come in and they'll play these 5 team teasers where it's not even the games. Or one gentleman played a ticket where he was betting on how many sacks players would have in the Super Bowl. And I forget the number, but if he invested a couple hundred, he was going to walk away with maybe 20,000.
It's
If he hit,
insane.
and and he can make the bet and he can go home. He can make it on his phone if he wants. He can, it just we where we are now versus where we were even 20 years ago is amazing. And
Hmm.
we just again, the industry as a whole has changed, but I think we need to really embrace it more. When you look at all the things that sports are doing with, football and baseball, with, the lines on the fields and calling balls and strikes, whether they ever will or not. I mean, I'm a soccer fan. The video review that they use in soccer, in the English Premier League. I think all of those things, have just, and those are relatively new when we think
Yeah.
about it, but they're always changing. They're always tweaking. They're always trying to do something different, to make the product better and to make it more viable for the fans and for the people in the industry as well. So
We
I
have
think
to evolve.
that's where we have to evolve. And sometimes, like you said, I remember when it used to be meets all the time and bouncing around and this and that. And, sometimes going back does work.
Hmm.
Sometimes making that shift to something that was done before, tweaking it, making it a little, touch
Less
here, touch
impactful.
there, whatever. It can help. It can definitely help.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk a little bit about what event at Penn National are you most excited for this year?
Who isn't? I mean, no offense. You really had to ask.
I have to ask.
Camels, ostriches,
I
zebras.
knew it.
Say it again. Camels, ostriches, zebras.
Hey, I was asked one year to ride a camel and then my camel scratched. So you're bringing me back, right?
Yes, you're back. You're back. I mean, we might have to switch you to an ostrich. I don't know. We'll just have to see. I don't know all the parameters. I never experienced the camel, ostrich, zebra races.
They're amazing.
I do remember a buffalo that used to race at one point years and years ago. I can't remember his name, but
I think I have like pictures of him that,
yeah. But yeah, no, that's a big event. It's funny. When I worked at Suffolk Downs, they had a thing called Hot Dog Safari, and I said, "What's Hot Dog Safari?" And they go, "Oh, you won't. It's trucks with hot dogs." I said, "Just hot dogs?" Yeah. There must have been 5,000 people that came out to eat hot dogs, and
it's my favorite
it
food.
was crazy. And the food truck festivals that we do out at the Meadows.
Hmm.
You know, you put food trucks on the apron. I mean, we put 50 food trucks on the apron, and the people would come 3 days in a row, and it's just amazing. So I'm looking forward to that. Very much looking forward to that. Looking forward to obviously the racing that we're going to have. 10 mile for sure. Hopefully we have nice weather this year. I know last year was postponement, cold dreary night. I saw you. I felt so bad. You looked like you were gonna just turn blue. You were so chilly.
It's so cold.
Yeah, it was. It
Such
was
bizarre
not.
weather.
Yeah, But those are things we can't control.
Exactly.
Yeah, looking forward to that, obviously, and really, those are the big ones for sure. But Governor's Cup, I think will be fun. Maybe we can do some things there. Um, I'm hopeful that as we go through this process, we can add to the racing. I had a meeting the other day and we talked about certain things. And I said, I think one of the things we have to do is reimagine racing and how we present it. Maybe not so much on the TV and those kind of things, because yes, that's a big part, but how we present it here at the property, just putting the horses on the track, is fun and it's enjoyable, but maybe it's not enough. Maybe we need to do some other things. Now navigating what we can do and how we can do it and those kind of things. Again, it's going to take time, and
Hmm.
probably baby steps, but I'm
For sure.
hopeful we can do some things. Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm excited too. And I'm happy to have you close by again and working together hand in hand. Not we've been working together hand in hand with the Meadows, but now here in central Pennsylvania. So
Well, thank you.
before I let you go, I got a couple hot seat questions because you know you're not going to get out of it. And I'm going to kick it off. You have to answer. These are my favorite part. This is the
Okay.
favorite questions I ask. All right. So now that you're back in PA, what is your favorite PA staple food? Is it a cheesesteak? Is it a soft pretzel? Is it a whoopie pie?
You know what my favorite PA food is, and you're gonna laugh? Maple syrup.
Really?
In Somerset County, they have a lot of small maple producers. It's a closet industry. I'm not gonna say I work, but we used to go help collect the sugar water, and then they would cook it down, and we would usually sit around and play cards while they were boiling. But it's a
Wow.
very, yeah. There's actually a maple festival in Myersdale, Pennsylvania, which is southern Somerset County. Yeah, they have a maple princess contest, the whole kit and caboodle, and yeah. So maple syrup and the maple products. That there was a lady that she had black walnut trees on her farm. They would collect the black walnuts, and she would make maple black walnut fudge every year, and we would go buy it. And yeah,
Well,
those
that's cool.
that's my favorite Pennsylvania food. Good.
I like that. I mean, we had a maple syrup cotton candy at Farm Show. I like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure who was there this year. I know one year, Milroy Farms, which is someone I went to high school with. That was his family sugar camp, so to speak. So he would go. His name was Jason Blocker, but still is Jason Blocker, as a matter of fact. So
That's really cool.
yep.
All right, next question. If I was talking to 10-year-old Scott Lisha, what would he say he would be doing for a job?
That was easy. I was going to be a professional baseball player.
I could see that.
Yeah, yeah. I used to love to play baseball, and I was pretty good at it until about the age of 13, when everybody else started to grow, and I still stayed about 5 foot.
We
I
have
kind
some
of fell
short
through the
baseball
ranks and figured
players,
it out.
but
Yeah, yeah. But no, that's what I would have done 10 years old. Yes.
that's very cool. I like that. So who's your team?
Got a few. I grew up as a Pirates fan, and I still like the
Mhm.
Pirates. But going to Maryland a lot in the summer, the Orioles, we would go to games down there, and over the years, I got to meet some baseball players from the Pirates, or from the Orioles. I mean, um, and got to develop some relationships, which was pretty neat. So I would say the Orioles my number one team, but I also do like the Yankees as well. I know, yeah, I do like the Yankees as well. Whenever the Yankees were in town, Joe Torre and Don Zimmer, Mel Stottlemyre, and Ron White, their coaching staff would always come out to the track, usually Pimlico, and hang out. And they were the nicest, most gracious people, and they wanted nothing. And all we did was, buy them lunch and give them a program in a racing form. And people would come and get baseball signed, and they never turned anybody
Awesome.
away, and they were just the nicest people. So,
You know, I'm born on Cal Ripken's birthday, and my dad
really,
would use me as a little pawn and put me up on his shoulder with a sign, Cal, it's my birthday too. And I got on Home Team Sports, and Cal came up on top of the dugout and
yeah,
took pictures with me and my dad, I'll never forget that because he has it literally recorded. He
that's
was like,
very
I got to
cool.
get that on the VH. So we got it put on a DVD eventually, but. Dad's always been a big O's fan. I remember from the time I can remember, my dad always had like a Walkman on or like the radio listening to the O's game. So love the Orioles.
Yeah, yeah.
So you just recently moved. If you could have a celebrity neighbor, who would it be?
Living or dead?
We could do both.
Celebrity neighbor. Probably uh, dead. It would be, and I'm going to just go old school, Dean Martin.
All
And
right.
the reason be, I hope he drank as much as he acted like he did on TV, because he would just be a blast to sit outside on the deck with and have drinks all afternoon. Um,
Yes, that's true.
yeah.
I like
Let's see. Boy, that's a tough one. So,
garage beers with Dean Martin.
garage beers with Dean Martin. Yeah. Could you imagine handing candy out on Halloween night with him? That would be a blast.
That's fun.
I think he was, yeah. Boy, living, let's see, celebrity. Daniel Day-Lewis, I think.
Aw.
I don't know why, but I think he's just incredible at what he does when he acts. I know he doesn't act much anymore at all, even, and I just think he'd be a unique person. Maybe him or Billy Bob Thornton, one or the other. Those would
Billy
be
Bob would be fun. Like
yeah,
that's another one. You like, what are you getting for cotton? Like for Halloween if you go there?
exactly, yeah.
Like, maybe like Jack Daniel's flavored cotton candy.
Pack of cigarettes and off you go. That's what he would probably give.
Yeah, the
Yeah, I
bad
think
Santa
either one
vibe.
of those. That would be.
I like that. That's funny. I love that you're thinking about like hanging out. So you're invested in your neighbors. You wanna have pals around you. So
Well, yeah, it makes it more enjoyable. That's for sure. I enjoy just hanging. And the other part is, I don't like to go places either. I want to be,
he doesn't want to do the driving about. No, I'm not coming to visit. I get that. All right, we talked a little bit about technology and the evolution of things. So with AI everywhere, what do you think? Is it fantastic or are you getting a little scared by it?
you know what? I think it's inevitable, but it takes a lot of the human aspect out of things. We even talked. I mentioned about calling balls and strikes. In a baseball game,
Hmm.
it does take that human element out of it. I think it's great that they could do it if they wanted to, but then there's that element of the fun of getting mad at the umpire. Just from a fan's point of view. I mean,
Oh yeah.
and I think AI has a place, but I still, nothing can replicate,
Human.
the human touch, the human, perspective, the human, and I think it can be scary in some elements.
Hmm.
So it's inevitable. It's here. It's going to grow. It's going to expand, but you still need to keep that human element involved in whatever it is.
I
I have a
agree.
daughter that's in college right now. I have no idea if she's writing her own papers or if ChatGPT is doing it for her. But I hope she gets the basis and then goes back and fills in a little bit. I don't know.
Changes it up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
Adds her own perspective to it. I mean,
exactly.
I've heard teachers are like embracing it and knowing kids are using it and just like kind of teaching them how to use it, which I think is smart because you can't get around it. They
Yeah,
have access to it. So I think it is, a way of allowing them to use it, but use it and make sure they're still putting in their own elements and
yeah,
not taking full advantage.
yeah,
So
for
you gotta
sure.
be able to think for yourself.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining Hot to Trot. You survived another episode. We're super excited to have you
Thank
again. And it's super excited to have you, at Penn National and can't wait till this summer and spring. And you guys are racing now. So tune in, check out the cards here at Penn. And thank you so much for joining us here on Hot to Trot. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much, Ashley.
Thanks for listening, and thank you to the Standardbred Breeders of Pennsylvania for sponsoring Hot to Trot. We'll see you next time.